about. And let's see. Thank you to Hodo Foods for sponsoring our live talks. We really appreciate it. And then let me lower my volume. And Virtual Veg Fest has a new, well, Triangle Veg Fest, Virtual Veg Fest, Veg Fest Expos, Plant Based Network. We have a new fundraising idea that I made up 2 days ago, 3 days ago. It's called Pass the Buck. What we're asking is for every person to donate $1 to our Pass the Buck campaign, and it's posted all over our social media and to our newsletter if you're part of that. And we're just asking you to donate $1 to Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge during the whole month of August. And we figure if every person who follows us, who watches this, who subscribes to our newsletter, everybody for all our social media channels donates $1, we can raise a lot of money for our nonprofit of the month, which, like I said, is Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge this month, which has over 100 animals in sanctuary in Pittsburgh, North Carolina. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel of Virtual Veg Fest and shop on virtualvegfest.com. We really appreciate that. Now, Sailesh Rao is with us today, and we are going to talk climate and environment, which is something that comes up almost all our talks, but has not been 100% the focus of our talks. It is incredibly important, as we were just talking about before we went live, is the whys and the hows of how to get people to understand how important this is, and also what we can do to make changes so that we have a planet for your kids, for your kids' kids, and for the future, and all the animals that inhabit this planet, that they still have a planet too. Incredibly, incredibly important. And a funny little story is from last year at the Animal Rights Conference. I ended up in elevators and down halls next to this man over and over and over. I had my little dog with me, and it just got to be funny that I was like, I keep seeing this man. And I knew who he was because he's been at the Fayetteville Veg Fest and he's a pretty amazing person, but I didn't introduce myself. So here we are because of Dilla, and we brought him on live, and I'm going to throw it at him to share with you who he is, what Climate Healers is, and I hope you enjoy. If you want to involve yourself in the conversation, please let us know that you're here, say hi, comment, ask questions, and here we go. It's all you.
Well, thank you, Helen. I'm Sailesh Rao. I am an engineer by profession. So I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering in India. And then I came to this country to do my graduate studies. And then for 20 years after graduation, I worked on the internet. And, I was quite successful at it. So I was able to get gigabit Ethernet on copper, so connecting computers to switches at very high rates. So it helped the internet take off. And then one day I came home from work and I saw Al Gore's presentation on TV. And I was so shocked. I said, if half of what he's saying is true, I'm wasting my time. So then I decided to look into it. And the more I looked into it, I realized it is far worse than what he's saying. And that so I had this sense of urgency that I had to do something about this. So I closed my company and I started focusing on the environment full time. That was 2006. Then I got trained by Al Gore. But during the training, I asked him a question. I asked him, imagine that if the whole world stops eating animals, consuming animals, and we return all the forests that we cut on the land that we are currently using for animals. Can we not reverse climate change by doing that? And he immediately turned to Roy Neal, his chief of staff, and he said, how did this guy get in here? So I knew at that point that there was something that he didn't want to talk about, that no one wants to talk about. And when I find out that there is a topic that no one wants to focus on it. So I started looking into it, and I realized it is the foundation of all of our environmental problems. So the leading cause of climate change, the leading cause of biodiversity loss, the leading cause of ocean dead zones, the leading cause of deforestation, everything comes down to animal agriculture. Okay, so I went vegan in 2008. When I realized that, and then I tried to figure out how do I tell this story to people. How do we? So I started writing books. So I wrote a book called Carbon Dharma, and not many people read it. So then I realized books are not the way to get to people. Probably documentaries are an easier way to do it. So then I started working on, started supporting documentaries that were already being done. So we did the human experiment, Cowspiracy, the sustainability secret, and then what the health, and then a prayer for compassion. And then we have 3 more documentaries that are going to be coming online in the next year or so. So, so we see Climate Healers is about education, it's about advocacy, advocacy on behalf of the animals who are dying the fastest. So they are the ones who are really motivating me at the moment. And also, it's about activism. It's about encouraging people to to be activists. So that's in a nutshell what Climate Healers does. And so I'm open to any questions.
You worked with Al Gore. How did you get in the room?
So I wrote to him first and I said, how can I help you? I saw your documentary and I'm really shocked, right?
Yeah.
So, and I didn't hear from him for about 6 months. And then finally I got a letter saying, we are conducting training. Would you like to be part of the training? And I said, sure, I would like to be trained. So I went to Nashville and I got trained by him. And this was in the second batch that he trained. So he had 50 people in the first batch, and then he had 200 people in the second batch. And so that's how I got all of his slides, and I was able to give his presentation for a while. But that was the idea behind the training, was that I was going to give his presentation to people in my circle. But then I realized I was not telling the whole story, that there is more to it, right? Because he only talks about fossil fuels and energy, whereas everything we do hurts the planet. It's not just energy, right? What we eat. So 3 times a day we are hurting the planet if we eat animal foods. So that's why I started Climate Healers as something to go beyond what Al Gore does, because Al Gore is talking about making sure that the temperature does not go over 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees Celsius. So it's like, if you have a doctor and the doctor says, oh, I will make sure your fever does not go over 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees Celsius, wouldn't you say that there is something wrong with this doctor? Because 3 degrees Celsius, that's like almost 4 degrees Fahrenheit. So he's saying that I'll make sure your temperature does not go over 102.5, And I said, wait a minute, 102.5, I'm really sick. And I don't want it to go that far, right? So can't you do something to bring me back to normal? So that's the question I started asking. Can we not bring the Earth's temperature back to normal?
And the responses you got?
Well, the answer is yes, it can be done, but it requires us to let go of our privileges. Literally, it's about making sure that when we talk about Black Lives Matter, that our Me Too movement, that we are fighting for equality. Now, to fight for equality, you have to fight for the equality of animals also. It doesn't work that human beings are all equal, but we all gang up and oppress animals. Because as long as we have that hierarchy saying animals are beneath us, there will be some humans who are beneath other humans. So, so it's about letting go of our privileges and our hierarchies, and then reimagining human society in which we truly equal, we truly are treated as equal, right? Um, so, so that fundamentally requires us to liberate the animals also.
Yes, because what you're speaking of is speciesism. in the
Right.
fact that for some reason on this planet, especially in this country, humans believe that we dominate or are higher than every other creature on this planet. And sadly, you're right. I never really thought about it in the sense that it doesn't just it doesn't just extend to the animals. It's amongst the humans as well. I wasn't really
Right.
applying the speciesism to other than humans and the rest of the animals on the planet, not including the other humans in there. But you're right. Especially in this country, the human beings are species towards other human beings. Hence the Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, and the fact that we have to
Right.
fight for animals and people, and not just animals, because that comes up a
Right.
lot in the vegan movement, the activist movement, is just care about the animals, forget about the humans. We have to care about both in order to make a
Yeah,
difference.
we have to care about all. It's about the othering. Okay. So when we do othering, we say someone is not part of my family, then that's when the oppressions happen, right? So it's about recognizing all life is your family. We are all one family. And then, so the suffering of another human being is also your suffering. The suffering of another animal is your suffering. So then you'll act to alleviate that suffering. So I say that, when we consume animal products, we consume animal foods, we are literally being racist, we are being sexist, we are being ableist, and speciesist, right? And colonialist. So we are promoting colonialism, we are promoting racism, we are promoting sexism, we are promoting ableism just by eating a burger. Because by eating that burger, so that burger came from, someone had to go cut down a forest in the Amazon to grow the cows to get the meat for the burger, right? So when we cut down the forest in the Amazon, it wasn't just animals who got displaced, even indigenous people got displaced because they were living in the Amazon. So we told them, hey, your life, your culture is not as important as our culture. So get out of the way so that we can grow our cattle, our cows. That is called colonialism. When we tell someone that their culture is inferior to your culture, that's colonialism, right? And then exploiting their land for our purposes, that's colonialism. And then you look at who is working in these factory farms and in these slaughterhouses, you'll see people of color, people who have no other jobs, who cannot do any other jobs. They, as a last resort, they go and do this kind of job because it's the worst job in the world, right? To kill animals routinely. So, so it's when we eat animal foods, we are saying it's okay if those colored people are affected. If they're doing the worst job in the world. I want my burger. So that's racism. And you also see where do they put these factory farms and these slaughterhouses? You see them being situated near places people of color living. So they are affected by the pollution. Okay? So, so their ill health is the price we have to pay for our burger. That's racism. Okay, and then you look at what these people do to the animals. I mean, it's literally the abuse of the feminine because it's the feminine of the animal that is being exploited to make new babies, to get milk for us, and so on. So it's the feminine of the animal that's being exploited routinely by people. And then you'll discover that those same people go home and they abuse the feminine of the human being also. Because it's hard for them to say, it's okay to abuse the feminine of that animal, but not for the human being. So it's the same mindset. Okay, so it causes sexism. It spreads sexism because the abuse of the feminine is so normalized. And finally, you see what is going on in these slaughterhouses. You see all these machines that are cutting animals into pieces, and then people get injured because they're working in these hazardous conditions. And then as soon as they get injured, we kick them out. And they have no recourse because they are not documented workers. You see, they're all undocumented workers. So you can throw them out and say, that's it, you're done. I'll get another person to come in and work on your behalf. So that's ableism. So all the isms that we talk about are built into the consumption of animal foods. So when we pay $2 for a burger, we are literally saying we are okay with colonialism, we are okay with racism, we are okay with sexism, and we are okay with ableism. And of course, we are okay with speciesism. It's all one ism, you know.
No, I that's that's the first time that I've heard it all put together like that. And you kind of understand, if you get this, you get that that's what it is. But to hear it spelled out, explained, I feel is very helpful. I feel for anyone who watches this or watches the replay of this or is live with us, it it's if you are still eating animals, when you go to pick up whatever animal product that you're choosing to eat, to have that in the back of your mind. It's kind of like watching Forks Over Knives and then like trying to eat dairy and be like, wait, what did Dr. Campbell say? Right? That just, do I
Right,
want to cause heart disease and, cancer and diabetes and high cholesterol in my body by the food that I put into it? And that seed, like, I feel like you just planted an amazing seed into people who are going to hear what you said. And if they're not fully on board or understanding of the impact of their diet on the planet, that's another way to, if you're for Black Lives Matter, if you're for the Me Too movement, or you're for just, not being racist or bigoted, or, taking over land that's not yours, which happens. It still happens, obviously. That maybe it's another way for you to go, wow, maybe now's the time to switch over that good old diet from the sad one to the whole food, plant-based, healthy vegan one, because you know I want the planet to exist longer than my lifetime, or at least not see it go away in my lifetime, especially
right,
for someone who has grandchildren. That's
right,
scary. To me it's incredibly scary. I get the urgency, and that we need to do something different. And one of the things, going back to the factory farms and the workers, people need to understand that they don't get paid well. Some students, I've been in ethical choices educator, and I go into the classroom, we talk about the factory farm workers. Do you want to like kill animals for a living? And like hands will, like, sometimes the hands will shoot up, and I'll be like, you don't get paid well, and the hand comes right back down. It's a horrible job. There's PTSD. Typically immigrants, people who can't get jobs, or it's located in an area where there are no jobs, and that is the only job available to survive, to put food on your family's plates. And you go and you slaughter animals all day, and yes, they have PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome. There goes my dog. So, because you can't take you can't, that energy, that death energy, that taking of lives daily, you can't do that and not have it impact you at some point somehow in your dreams, in your life, your psyche. It's 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 not possible. And it's not being
right,
done because they it's like, I graduated from college and I've decided to go be a factory farm worker. That's not what happens. And that's important for people. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's important for people to understand as well, especially with the pandemic and then becoming essential workers.
right,
And being forced to work in an environment where COVID is rampant so that meat can be on people's plates, which isn't even necessary for our diets. Without even going
right,
into the fact that we're herbivores, and we don't even have the teeth to eat meat. We don't even have to go there, but that's a whole other topic, because that's health, not climate and environment. But going to the land factor, the raising of the forest, the Amazon forest, so that the cows can have land to graze, so they can eat, so they can be slaughtered, so that humans can eat. What does it do to the land?
Oh, it destroys the land. You know, so 37% of the land area of the planet is used just to graze animals today. Graze our animals, not wild animals. It's just to graze our cows or pigs, and I mean our sheep and our goats and ruminants that we raise. Now, land stores about 2,500 billion tons of carbon. Okay, all land put together. So it's 3 times as much carbon as in the atmosphere. Okay, so the atmosphere we know has about 240 gigatons more carbon than it did before industrial era began. So to so which means that if you increase the carbon on land by 10%, you can literally reverse climate change. Okay, just 10%. Now it turns out that the 37% of the land that's used for grazing only stores 2% of the land carbon. It's so poor in carbon. Its soil has been depleted. Everything has been depleted. There are no trees growing there. It's basically just grass. And it is so depleted, it's only storing 2% of the carbon, even though it is 37% of the land. And we calculate that if you bring back the original forest that we had cut on that land, you can literally reverse climate change. You can actually store more carbon than we have added to the atmosphere since 1750. So the land use is such a big issue. The land use for animal agriculture is a huge issue, because that's where the solution to climate change comes from. That's where the solution to biodiversity loss comes from. Solution to all of our environmental problems comes from giving up that land back to nature, back to the wild animals, you know, and actively going and regenerating the forests on that land so that the animals have a place to live. So that I think is what we need to start doing now. Now there is no money in it in the current system. The money is not there in regenerating forests. The money is in cutting down the forest and exploiting the land. Right? There's no money in bringing back the forest. So which means we have to play a different game. We have to have a different money game. Because the money game that we are playing today is the game of colonialism. It's through money that we have colonized the whole world. Okay? Because who are the bankers who control the money? They are the colonizers of the planet. So it's about changing that game. It cannot be a top-down money game, because that lends itself to colonialism, racism, sexism. All those isms come from that game too. And we are supporting it by eating animals.
Right. I was just okay, making sure you didn't lock up there. The right. The why the land that the animals are on, the feed that is fed to the animals, especially cows, can feed the world and make it so that a single person is hungry.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely,
So the
right?
numbers are staggering. Numbers are staggering, okay? Because so I use the analogy of a family of uh, 8 children. Okay, imagine you have a family of 8 children, and mother makes 48 um, 46 plates of food and leaves it in the fridge and tells the eldest brother, take care of the family, I'm going to work. Okay, there's enough for you to eat. So there's 46 plates of food in the fridge. There are only 8 kids. So imagine now that the eldest brother takes 40 plates of food and makes his youngest sister feed it to the animals. Okay, so there are only 6 plates of food left because he fed 40 plates of food to the animals. And then he tells the other sister, go and milk the animals or cut them up, cut one chicken up and kill them and bring me back 1 plate of food. So now he says to the family, look, there are 8 of us, there's only 7 plates of food. So one of you will have to starve. And to determine who is going to starve, I'm going to play a game. Okay? If you do what I tell you, then I'll feed you. Okay? So he tells one brother to go and make fast cars for him, another brother to go and dig minerals for the fast cars. So you have this dynamic where the eldest brother is controlling what everybody else does. And then he tells one sister, I'm sorry, there's only 7 plates of food, and there are 8 of us, and you'll have to starve because you didn't do any work for me. And then when someone comes and says, look, there are 46 plates of food to begin with, you wasted all that food, right? He says, no, 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 we all need animal foods. Okay? We all need it. So he convinces everybody you need animal foods to survive. So then we are all clamoring for that animal food, that plate of animal food. Okay? And then he says, look, how is the sister going to eat if she doesn't go raise the animals? Those two sisters who are going out there and raising animals and bringing back the animal foods, they won't be able to eat if they don't do that work. So we have completely turned things around. You see, we began with the assumption that we all have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That the Creator gave it to us. Right? Gave us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then we have convinced everybody that you all have to earn a living. So what does earn a living mean? It means that unless you serve the master, you're not entitled to live. It's a completely colonial dialogue that we are having. It's the story of colonialism, right? Unless you serve the master, you cannot live. You're going to die. That's the kind of system that we have created. So now is the rest of us have to get together and say to the eldest brother, hey, dude, your reign is over, right? We are going to take the 46 plates of food and we are going to share it among ourselves. We're not going to put it to the animals and then kill the animals and all this nonsense, right? So if we create a vegan world, suddenly you have plenty of food.
That's true. It's another great analogy that again I go back to the how do we change it, because the society that we live in today with the pandemic has really
Mhm.
shown the haves and have nots. It's been this way. The pandemic has made it more profound in the sense that,
Right.
especially with the additional unemployment money going away potentially, the people not knowing how they're going to put food on their tables. I read one article, I think in the Washington Post, they interviewed about 5 different people how it impacts them that they're losing that money. And one person said they only meet once a week because they need to save their money in order to survive. And I didn't expect to see that in an article like that. But the thought process is meat's expensive. We can eat grains and fruits and vegetables and rice and have all the nutrients that we need and spend a lot less money. It's almost like World War II time. Meat goes away because of
Right.
the World War and everyone's health got better. Pandemic time, everyone's is homebound and the air gets cleaner and the animals come out because the humans aren't there to run them over or kill them. And the positives with I see a lot of positives with this pandemic. I fall more along the lines of the optimist. The fact that we saw change in our environment because we all stayed home. We need more of that. But how do we do it? Because like you said, you have to go and work a job in order to survive.
Right.
And And you're right. It's that the brother, the oldest brother, and I have an older. I'm the youngest of four, so I understand that oldest brother. You need to do this mentality,
Right.
and when you say no, your head rolls. You're like, that's not fair. Well, that's right. It's not fair, and that's a societal, sociological issue with the way our country is run, and will have an impact, as you're truly noting, on the planet and the environment and our existence of being able to be here. Now, how we change
Yeah,
that, I don't know.
yeah. This the COVID-19 is actually showing us that it's showing us all the inequalities that we have already had in our society. It's exposing all of it. Okay, it's also exposing that the old model of growing our way into prosperity for all is broken. It's not going to work. Yeah. So we always believe that if we just grow the economy, then everybody will prosper eventually. It's not true. There are limits on the planet. You cannot grow beyond a certain point. Now your growth is coming at the expense of someone else being hurt. Okay? So we have to figure out a different way of organizing ourselves. And a lot of people have been talking about this. They are working out details, like universal basic income. Countries should have universal basic income so that they feel secure. People have to feel secure about themselves. Then they will contribute to what is the best thing to do for the planet or for the community. If you don't feel secure, it's always about you, right? It's going to be about how am I going to get my next meal. And even in the current system, with so many people having lost their jobs, they're estimating that the number of people who are hungry is going to increase by 50% in the US by the end of this year. And worldwide, it's going to double by the end of this year. Okay? And because the economy is shrinking everywhere. Okay? Now, that means that 1.6 billion people are probably going to go hungry. That means that there are 6.2 billion people who are not hungry. So if I look at it as a family of 5 people, okay, if 4 people are eating properly, eating plenty of food, the 5th person is going hungry, don't you think we would share with the 5th person? So I'm saying that we have the wherewithal to end hunger. And that is the way to address the Sustainable Development Goals. We know how to end hunger because there's plenty of food available. If we don't feed it to the animal and then kill the animal and eat the animal, which is a silly thing to do, if you just eat the plant food directly, there's plenty of food available. Okay? So I'm suggesting that every community, you may find that in a food desert, it's more expensive to eat healthy than it is to go eat fast foods. Okay, that's the conventional wisdom. That's looking at the community as individuals. Each individual has to go get healthy food and come back and cook it themselves. Now, what if the community got together and then we cooked food in bulk? Maybe a stew or something like that, right? So then one person makes a trip and gets a sack of rice and sack of potatoes, sack of beans, a sack of, boxes of produce, and they cook the stew, then everybody can enjoy that. And the overall cost will be much less than what you're paying fast food people. So literally, even today, you can create food systems in which you're paying less than what you pay in fast food places, and you're eating healthy. If you want to, you can do it today, right? But you have to come together as a community and do it together as a community. Perhaps the neighborhood church could be doing that. Right? So then everyone in the community knows that they just have to go to church and they can get a healthy stew.
Yep. A filling, healthy stew. I was thinking churches when you were speaking would be probably the best place in the food desert type communities areas that you can reach people because they can get to the church, but they don't have a Publix or
Right.
a Wegmans or a Costco or BJ's that they can shop at without having to travel further distances. I think of the east coast of North Carolina where you have all the factory farms with the pigs, and then the closest real city with stores like that would be Wilmington, and it's an hour and a half away, hour away.
Right.
And that's far when you potentially don't have a car and you have sickness from living next to a factory farm
Right.
because of the chemicals and the manure and the smells that just is sprayed all around you that you can't even open your windows. Because again, something you brought up is that they typically put them in areas of people of color, more impoverished. They can't fight, they can't sue.
Right.
It's they don't have the resources to do that when they're slowly being killed by the cancers and the diseases that come from living next to a factory farm. And
Right.
it's incredibly important that a lot of people go into eating this way because of health, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Long term wise, you need to understand that it's not just your health that's impacted by the way you're eating, and that it impacts the animals, which I think is a little bit more obvious. Obviously, you're not eating a dead animal on your plate, so that animal didn't die for you to eat. But the environment, the planet, is a little bit, it takes a little bit more depth and a little bit more research and understanding to understand just how much your choices of what goes on your plate impacts everything around you, including other people being able to eat.
Right.
It's profound and incredibly serious, and also incredibly difficult concept, I think, for a lot of people to understand. So I really appreciate that you started doing this and realized that there was more than what Al Gore was saying, than
Right.
just let's just reduce fossil fuels, let's just like not make the temperature go up anymore. We're not doing a really good job at this. We're just not. And how important it is that you're right. You could eat the cow, or we could feed and have no hunger in this world, no hunger in this country.
Right.
If you don't want to go outside of this country, no hunger here. If we take the food, we feed the animals and feed it to
Right.
humans because it's corn and grains and it's not just grass. So,
Right.
soy, a lot of soy is being fed, or, GMO, non organic soy is being fed to these animals, which is what you're consuming when you eat them. And that in itself, the antibiotics, and yeah,
Right.
there's, it's not healthy is basically the bottom line for numerous reasons. So I really appreciate that you're bringing attention to this, and that we brought attention to this today because this is I guess a more somber topic than usual, but probably one of the most important, and that is, I'm glad. I'm really glad. I think again, thank Dilip for putting us together and having you as part of this. Is there anything else you want to share?
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, this is, uh, I'm, I wanted to emphasize to people that the solution is in our hands. It's not anyone else. Government is not going to do anything to solve climate change or to solve our health problems because they're making money off of us. They're making money off of our sicknesses. This is why fast food places are right there, so that they can get you to be sick, so that they can then give you medicines, and then they can get money, extract money out of your body. So, so they're not going to help us heal. We have to heal ourselves. So it's literally in our hands. So I tell people, you have to start healing your world first. And if every one of us starts healing our world, then the world will heal. But if one person doesn't want to heal their world, then that will be a pocket of ill health in the world.
And then we
So it's
define,
as fundamental as that, you know?
yes, and peer pressure or just live by example. So we can't force anybody to do anything, but we can show what can be done and what you can do about it and what changes you can make to make a difference for this planet, for the animals, and for your health. And in some ways it's easy, and in some ways it's not, because for some people it's like giving up their best friend, changing their diet, right? And then for some others it was this easiest thing in the world because they saw something like Cowspiracy or Earthlings and went,
Mhm.
nope, done.
Right,
Don't want to be part of that world anymore. I'm jumping over cold turkey is the worst fight. What did I hate? I hate using animal
right.
references, but yeah. So now, if anyone wanted to find you or get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Go to climatehealers.org, and or you can write to me at srao at climatehealers.org.
And that'll be on the website too, right?
Right. Yeah. You can click on the website and then send us a message on that too.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I said that this was an important talk, and it is now in the books and out for to share and for people to watch and listen and learn. And I know you're going to keep doing what you're doing, and I know you're going to keep speaking when we can get back to in person talks. He'll still be out there letting people know the importance of healing the planet. So that I thank you for. I truly, truly thank you for. And for everyone else, as a reminder, please wear a mask over your nose and under your chin and social distance so that you can see us in person. Maybe 2021. I'd like to do something in 2021. I'd like to do something in the fall of 2020 and have an in-person event. And the only way that will happen is if you wear a mask and social distance. And the other thing that I brought up recently is poll workers. If you can sign up to be a poll worker so that we can have more polling stations available when November 3rd comes around to vote in the United States, and it would be really helpful because typically the people working the polls are the elderly, and it's too dangerous for them to be out in a pandemic working all day with the public, indoors especially. So if you can sign up to be a poll worker and get paid, we can have as many options as possible, especially in areas like people of color and less affluent areas, which tend to have less polling stations. And they need as many open as possible so they don't have to wait 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours to cast their right to vote. And this is an incredibly important election this year. So that's my little spiel about what we can do to help change our immediate needs on this planet so everyone can survive this. So when we see you again, you'll be healthy and happy and we can hug, which I'm really looking forward to when that does happen. As for next week on Thursday, we have Jason from vegevents.com. He's been creating a whole bunch of stuff at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then on Saturday, we're going to investing with Claire from Beyond Animal and Beyond Investing. And that's, international. So everyone have a great rest of your weekend. Be careful. A hurricane going up the East Coast. And, hopefully it won't be as bad as it could be, but still, please stay safe. And wherever you are, take care. And thank you again, Sailesh Rao, for joining us.